guys, we are back here at my shop at the house, and a lot of people have been asking how much it costs to do an LSA blower swap. And I haven't really added it up because there's a lot of variables to it. How much you pay for the blower, what front drive you run, what you're going to do for supporting mods, cold air, headers, stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is break out the whiteboard, and I'm going to give a kind of brief general description of what it's going to cost to do an LSA swap. So it's going to differ for everyone, but this should give you a pretty good idea of what everything costs. Before I get started, don't forget you can get high PSI TV t-shirts. I'm wearing a hoodie. I don't have hoodies for sale, but you can get t-shirts in the description below. Just click on the link, and we accept PayPal. We accept all major credit cards, so we can get you hooked up, and I'll usually ship them out within 1 or 2 days of the orders. So check it out, get yours today. Quick little video, sit back and relax. I'm gonna crack a beer. Yeah. And we're gonna get started. The whiteboard moves a little bit, but I'm gonna try to write big so you guys can read it. I'm using my phone so I can see what I'm doing. So let's get started. First thing is blower. So depending on where you get your supercharger from is how much it's gonna cost. Core charge from GM is 300 bucks. We're gonna use 2 colors because we're fancy. Core charge is 300 bucks. If you buy the blower off someone who maybe did a Magnuson swap or a Whipple swap, you can expect to pay about $2 grand for everything. That includes the rails, the injectors, and all that stuff. I bought the blower as a GM core, so I paid, I think, $350 for mine with no rails, no injectors, no snout, nothing like that. So that's your first major component that you have to worry about. So let's say you buy your blower and it doesn't have injectors or rails or anything like that. So we'll come over here and we'll do injectors and rails. Except I can't spell. Injectors and rails. The injectors, depending on what you want to run, let's say you want to run fast 85-pound injectors. They're about 400 bucks. And then the rail is kind of expensive. It's about 350 bucks. So to get your whole blower set up that's ready to go on the car, that's about what you're going to spend. The next major component, depending on what engine you're putting it on, you might need adapter plates. I had to use ICT billet cylinder head adapters and throttle body adapter. So I'll do adapter plates. There's a couple companies that make these. I used ICT billet because I could get them directly from Summit. And total in those, I have right about 200 bucks for everything I need to bolt the blower to the engine. The next major component you're going to need is the front drive bracket. I use the one from LS Simple. It's actually the least expensive, and I did have a few issues with it when I first got it, but I think I've worked through all of those. I'll find out when I put it on the dyno and get it back on the street. But there's a couple companies that make those too. LS Simple is one of them, and there's a couple companies that use a CTSV front drive kit, so the blower gets its own dedicated drive. Front drive. So your front drive, mine was 450 bucks shipped. The price on that might change a little bit, and the more expensive kits can be up around 1,500. So we will do 450 to 1,500. And I hope you guys can see the red because I don't want to do this all over again. Like I said, the front drive kit, not that expensive. If you do the LS Simple stuff, it can be a lot more expensive if you do like a total conversion where you do a crank pulley, power steering, alternator, water pump, and you change all that stuff around. With the LS Simple stuff, I did have to buy a water pump. Water pump. The water pump for me was 150 bucks. And the reason that I had to buy a water pump was because the upper radiator hose water neck comes out in line with the front of the motor instead of pointing out at a 45-degree angle. So now you have the LSA blower on the car. The next thing you have to worry about is wiring. You have to extend your mass air if you're going to use it. Inlet air temp has to be moved. You have to change the injector pigtails. And you can buy pigtails to do all this stuff, or you can make your own, so the price is going to vary. Chris from RPM also owns Crawford Racing, makes pigtails and stuff, so he made all of mine for me. So we'll write down here wiring. And depending on how you want to do it, you can buy the stuff or you can make it all yourself. So let's say you're going to be in about 150 bucks on wiring. All right, so now you've got the blower sitting on the car or truck and it's all wired. Next thing you have to do is worry about your fueling. Most cars do not have the fuel system to support the new supercharged stuff, so you can do stuff like an in-tank fuel pump, a booster pump. You can do a full standalone fuel system if you have an older car. So this one's tricky too. So we'll do fuel system. All I did on my truck was I put in a Deechworks fuel pump in tank, and it's the biggest one they make. It's their DW400. That costs about 450 bucks. Now you can go all the way up to $2,000 depending on how far you want to push this stuff. But just for the sake of keeping it simple, we're going to put this at 500. And these cheap little dry erase markers that are different colors don't work good. Now that you have everything wired and plumbed, you have to put an air filter on it. What most guys will do is they'll buy a silicone coupler that wraps around back the front of the engine, and they'll use their stock cold air intake. That's about 50 bucks. I made a pie cut cold air intake, which I have about 250 bucks invested into, not including my time. What we'll do there is we'll assume the worst. We'll go cold air intake, and we'll say that's about $300, depending on how you do it. So you can see we're gonna have a range of prices here, but I'm trying to keep it pretty simple. Something else you have to do when you install a blower on a older truck or car is you have to pin the crank. Crank pin kits are about 50 bucks. So that is basically everything that you need to have in order to put the LSA blower on your car, truck, and make it work. Now I've done some other things too, other supporting mods to make it a little bit better, and I'll put that over here in a separate column. One of the things I did was headers. I ran pace setter headers, ceramic coated, with a catless Y pipe. So depending on what headers you want to run, you're probably looking right around 600 bucks for headers. Now keep in mind, none of this involves any of the labor that you're going to put into it or you're going to pay someone else to do. So that's going to change things dramatically. Something else that we want to talk about is your heat exchanger. What kind of heat exchanger are you going to run? You can pick up a used Z01 heat exchanger for about 50 bucks. If you can't find one, you want to run something from Frozen Boost or Chiseled or something like that. Put an ice tank in like I did. That's definitely going to up the price. So the last thing we're going to do down here is intercooler system. So in my intercooler system, I have a stock takeoff ZL1 heat exchanger with a CTSV water pump and a Rhodes Race Cars ice tank. Total involved in that, I have about 300 bucks. But if you have to buy everything new or you buy a little bit better stuff with fans and bigger water pumps and stuff like that, you're going to be up around 1,000. So let's do 300 to 1,000 on that. So the hard part now is we're going to talk about labor. If you're not doing any of this stuff yourself and you're going to pay someone to do it, I can tell you I have about 3 entire days in doing this whole setup, maybe a little bit more, because I did stupid things like make a cold air out of stainless pie cuts. So if you're charging 8 hours a day and you have 3 days, that's 8, 16, 24. So you're 24 hours. $24 hours of labor at 100 bucks an hour, that's 2,400 bucks. And again, that's going to vary depending on how much of it you do yourself or if you pay someone else to do it. And that should include everything from your fuel system, all your wiring, doing your heat exchanger, installing the blower, stuff like that. What that does not include is tuning it. So now we have to tune it. And depending on the tuning shop that you use, it's going to vary in price as well. Up at RPM Motorsports, for a naturally aspirated tune on an older vehicle, we charge 400 bucks. For a boosted or nitrous application, we charge 500. So basically, that covers the cost of doing an LSA swap here or there. So like I said, everything is going to vary depending on the parts that you use and how much you can get your used parts for. So through the magic of editing, I'm going to add this all up real quick.
A few moments later.
So just like that, we have our totals. This does not include labor or the headers. So for parts and installing it yourself, you're looking between $3,650 and $7,100. That might sound like a lot, but think about it this way. $7,100 is the baddest stuff that you can get, you know, 8-rib drive and all that. $3,650 is if you're doing all this stuff on a budget. You're buying the cheaper parts, the cheaper adapter brackets, making the wiring harnesses yourself, you know, doing just an in-tank fuel pump instead of a really big fuel system. So there's a big spread. Also, say for my truck, for example, a ProCharger kit is about $6,500 to $7,000. So you're up in the higher end price range of doing an LSA swap. The reason I did an LSA swap is because they're familiar to me. I work on LSAs every day. I was able to get some parts a little bit cheaper because we had parts laying around the shop, some broken parts that I can fix and stuff like that. This should give you a good idea of what it's going to cost to do an LSA swap. Is it cheap? No. Is it expensive? Not really. So I don't know how much power I'm going to gain from doing this yet. I'll find out once I get it on the dyno, which hopefully will be this week. So this video will come out on Wednesday. Hopefully I will have another video by this weekend showing it on the dyno. This is what you guys asked for, so you got it. Take another sip of beer and I'll bring the camera close so you can see everything a little bit better. I want to do some more of this whiteboard stuff. I think it's kind of cool. You know, we'll do this for some other projects too, other stuff that I install. Give you guys an idea of how much it's going to cost. Remember, always check out the link in the description below. There is merchandise there. And thank you guys for watching. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. That's how I know if I'm doing a good job. And things are moving really fast for the channel. I'm hoping to be at 10,000 by the heat of the summer. 10,000 followers would be amazing. Things are moving so fast and it's hard for me to keep up. You know, I find myself out here in the garage talking to a camera instead of, you know, going to the gym or the bar and stuff like that, which is cool. I get to entertain you guys and I know you guys like it. We did a live Q&A last night and that went really well for me too. So thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions, be sure to comment below and I try to answer every question that I get. Might not be that day, but I'll always get to them. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.